So, welcome to Pregnant Possibilities with Dr. Deborah Shapiro and myself. I am Jeanne Schumacher. Welcome. And I'm kind of excited that, not just for today, but next week, I just want to let you in a little secret. We are having Dr. Michael Clapper, who, oh my God, talk about a legend. I mean, I'm so excited to have him. And he's coming on to have questions. So if you have questions that you would like to have Michael Clapper, answer, please message us. You can do so in our Facebook Live or Facebook group, Pregnant Advantage. Oh my goodness. So are you ready, Dr. Shapiro, to jump into our questions today?
Yes, absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here with everyone, and we do have some great questions. And I actually have formed some questions for Dr. Clapper too that I think will be very interesting for everyone to hear the answers to. This Pregnancy Advantage program is so important because I was recently hearing again, I think from an OBGYN kind of a news, that women do not change their diet substantially once they are pregnant. So we can't expect that you're going to try to get healthier and eat healthier when you're already pregnant. That's not the time to be making big changes. The time to be making big changes and learning how to thrive on a whole plant food diet is before you get pregnant, which is why we made this Pregnancy Advantage program. In addition, it takes time to get out, to get rid of some of the toxins that have been building up and wean off of things that you might have accumulated from fish. But we have some terrific questions, and I'm happy to deal with that today.
Excellent. Well, the first question, I think, is a big one. And I think people really need to understand this because there is this huge misnomer. I mean, we've been raised, oh my God, since it's been like indoctrinated into us. Because if you ask anybody about, calcium, where do you get it from? The answer is dairy, and I think that's a huge misnomer. So the question that came in, and people had written us ahead of time. So if you have questions, you can message us through the Facebook page, Pregnancy Advantage. But the question on deck is, doesn't calcium have to come from milk and dairy products? And are there other ways to get enough calcium?
Terrific question. There's been so much pressure on us growing up, telling us that we need to drink milk to get calcium. Calcium comes from milk, calcium comes from dairy, it comes from cows, and we need it. I had to sit at my table until I finished my glass of milk. And I remember the milk mustache ads that were very powerful, and milk builds strong bones. I mean, we really got this, drummed into us. And I don't know whether that message is changing at all. It might be, because there certainly has been an explosion of plant-based milks, and some of them are actually fortified with more calcium, and some of them have B12 and D in them as well. But what I'd like to point out is if you look at the animals in the world that are the strongest and the largest and the heaviest, the bulls, the stallions, the rhinos, the elephants, the giraffes, they're making a tremendous amount of muscle and bone, and they are not breaking their hips, and they are eating grass. So we know that calcium comes from plants. That being said, I mean, it is different to absorb the calcium from milk versus from plants. And so you do have to think about it. It is an element of concern, and you do have to make sure that you're getting enough. But it's fascinating that we are the only species that drinks the milk of another species into adulthood. Mother's milk is very important, and it's the mother's milk from that species. It's species dependent. I mean, I've seen the Facebook pictures of little cats being fed by dogs and vice versa. But in general, it's very important to drink the milk of your own species because that's made for you. I mean, think about what human milk can do, and actually it's only 1% protein as opposed to other milks. It has the lowest percentage of protein. I mean, people always stress, oh, we need more protein, but actually human milk has the lowest amount of protein than any other mammalian milk. And when you think about cow's milk, which Dr. Clapper calls bovine growth serum, I think, or cow's growth serum, baby cow growth serum, I think is what he calls it, which is
it's true.
Yes, because it turns, a 60-pound calf into an 800 or maybe 80-pound calf into a 600-pound cow very quickly. So there's a lot about cow's milk that we don't need, but we do need calcium. So where do we get our calcium? Where should humans get their calcium? And one last thing about cow's milk. It's sort of interesting that it becomes sort of almost a racist issue about milk and milk in schools and milk on the, that's being recommended in the dietary guidelines, because so many humans have lost the ability to break down the lactose, the sugar in milk. we don't have the lactase enzyme. It gets suppressed and doesn't carry through until adulthood. Actually, it's a mutation, a genetic mutation in Northern Europeans that has allowed the lactase enzyme to persist into adulthood. But most people on the planet, Asians and Africans and Jews and Native peoples, we do not, and Africans, right, and African Americans, obviously, we are Blacks, we do not usually are not able to digest milk. So it's terrible that there's no alternatives in school, and a lot of the school programs are determined by the dietary guidelines. So this is actually a racist issue, and it should end. So, and it hasn't yet, I don't believe. I think still in school, they're still giving these little, but maybe it will change. So
I know.
Where do we get our So where do we get our calcium? We get our calcium from plants, and we get them primarily from greens and beans. So low oxalate greens. You're not going to get calcium from a high oxalate green like a beet green or a chard or a spinach, because the oxalates sort of hold on to the calcium. Spinach is an excellent source of iron. It's interesting that the oxalates in the spinach don't inhibit the absorption of the iron, but they hold on to the calcium. The lower oxalate greens that have a lot of calcium would be the collard greens and kale and broccoli. And there are other, I mean, you can look up tables, but almonds have calcium, and the soy, all the beans, and especially soybeans, and especially the tofu that's set in calcium. You know, the kind that comes in a little pack with water, it's got some more calcium in that. So beans and greens. And so when you look at Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, and he talks about how many, you need a cup and a half of legumes a day. And, you can also get it from calcium fortified orange juice or calcium fortified plant milk. How much do you need? Well, they say we should have about 1,000 milligrams a day. But what's interesting is that when they looked at large populations who were eating different diets, so this data came from the EPIC Oxford study in Europe, looking at European vegans, they did have less calcium. They did have less calcium, but if they got at least 525 milligrams of calcium a day, they did not seem to have any more fractures than anyone else. So I'm not telling you to have only 525. I'm telling you to get close to 1,000 milligrams a day if you can. But if you get, 6, 7, 800, I don't expect from the studies that you would suffer from more osteoporosis and more fracture. The other thing that, and Clapper always talks about this, that osteoporosis, which is a very serious illness, and very serious to get a hip fracture later in life, within a year, many older women can actually die, but it's not a disease of calcium deficiency. It's a disease of disuse. And also you need vitamin D, and vitamin D levels are often quite low in people. So watch your vitamin D, make sure you get sunlight, and more importantly, exercise and use all of your bones and all of your muscles every day. And you could do resistance training and you could do weight training, but it's all about putting strain, because you have these osteoblasts. These are cells that are building bone, and you have osteoclasts, which are removing bone. And you need there to be a balance where you have more osteoblasts working than osteoclasts, and the way to do that is to put pressure on the bones. Stress on the bones is good. So my father used to say, if I was lying on the couch watching Lost in Space after school, he would say, get out and play, and if you don't use your legs, they're going to fall off. And he was right. So other things that you can do is not have don't have a lot of salt, because sodium will wash some of that calcium away and will reduce your bone density. So that's why we recommend a very low sodium diet and no added salt, oil, sugar diets, right? So whole plant foods with no added salt, oil, sugar. There's natural sodium in foods. We're not against that. I would definitely not add additional salt. You don't need to. A couple of times in your life when it's very important not to be losing bone. And one is when you're pregnant or before pregnancy, because you could be leaching, because we store toxins in our bones. We store heavy metals in our bones. And when you're breaking down your bones because you're not getting enough calcium, then that would release these toxins that you do not want in your body. So when you're pregnant or pre-pregnancy, or also when you're menopausal, that would be times, if you don't think you can get close to 1,000, maybe you want to take a little bit extra as a supplement. I do not recommend calcium supplements in general, because they can increase your risk of heart disease. So calcium supplements, extra calcium is not really needed, but if you really think you're not able to get enough through your diet for some reason, then I would try to put the tank up a little bit.
Well, one of the things we do recommend in the Pregnancy Advantage, because We talk about nutrition, a lot about nutrition. And one of the recommendations is to start the day with a smoothie. And literally you are putting into the smoothie 8 ounces of greens. 8 ounces. I mean, that's like a huge amount of greens. And that you're going to get a lot of calcium from. And I just know myself, I have a scale, it's called the Tanita, and it measures your bone mass. And since I started doing the smoothies, my bone mass has gone back up. So that is phenomenal. I'm just really happy about that because I was concerned, as we get older, our bones start having issues. So
absolutely. Even they start at an early age. We reach our peak bone mass, really quite early in our 30s or 40s. So, and then it can start to go down. And certainly by menopause, which is not the group that we're mostly talking to, because I don't think you can have a baby if you're postmenopausal unless you take a lot of hormones and use somebody else's eggs. But then your bone mass does really start to go down at a higher rate. So use your bones and get enough calcium. And, one thing I know about smoothies, this is interesting, is that a lot of women just use one kind of green. They might I've heard this a lot. They're just using spinach in their smoothies. And if you use spinach in your smoothies, it's great for iron, but I'm telling you, you're not going to get the calcium. So you have to look for those low oxalate greens and have your broccoli. And what's interesting also is that, broccoli, the cruciferous vegetable, very important for sulforaphane, which is good for detoxifying, for helping your liver to detoxify. It increases those phase 2 enzymes in your liver. And broccoli, it gives you the sulforaphane and the calcium. So that's why you should definitely have broccoli every day.
Win-win. Okay. Yes. All right. So I think we've kind of put that to bed, calcium,
I hope so.
We don't need it from animal products. And the animal products you have to deal with. Anything that you put in or on your body has to deal with. And so we're not really supposed to be drinking the lactating fluid of another species. Just saying. So.
And there's so much cruelty, and there's so much cruelty involved with the dairy industry. I think people don't really, sometimes they don't want to see it. And I know a lot of people who are vegetarians. I also went through a phase where I was vegetarian and I didn't really see it. I ate rennetless cheese, but I didn't realize it was the cheese itself that was cruel.
So this is a big one because I'm sure everybody along the way has had to deal with this in some way, shape, or form. I'm still dealing with it, and I've been plant-based for 10 years. How can I deal with pressure from friends and my family who don't understand why I don't eat animals?
It's a troubling question because I think it hurts a lot of us to have to do this constantly. It's almost like coming out all the time, and coming out as vegan, and here it's like coming out as gay, and coming out as vegan, and getting this backlash of, and I mean, get it online. I mean, social media is really terrible for this. How do you deal with it? Everyone deals with it a little bit differently. You have to pick and choose, right? You pick and choose your arguments. I think everyone has to know for themselves why they are doing it, right? There are 3 main reasons to eat a plant-based diet. One is for your health, one is for the animals, and one is for the environment. And if you can learn a little bit about each one, and especially about the motivating factor for you, then you should have no trouble giving some information to the people that you're talking to. If they're asking for information, you can ask if they want to hear any information. I wouldn't necessarily be baited into conversations, especially while you're eating. Now, I know a lot of us are now not, because we're all social distancing, we're not actually eating together a lot of the times. But I remember, and I'm sure we'll get to that point again, when you were sharing a meal and people would look at what you're eating and try to get you to talk about what you're eating and why you're not eating what they're eating. And I'm telling you, that is not the time. Don't do it because they just get upset. Just remember that how you're eating, whether you're doing it for the animals or the environment or your health, everyone knows that that's a pretty good thing to do. And so when you're doing it and they're not, it makes them very uncomfortable. So don't talk about what you're eating or why you're eating the way you're eating while you're eating or while they're eating. But just ask them, I'd love to talk about it with you. I'd love to talk about it sometime and give you all the reasons that I'm doing it and tell you all the great effects that I feel from doing it. But let's make a time to do it when we're not eating. That would really be best. How have you handled it, Jeanne, in your life?
In the beginning, it was tough because I wanted to, when you find something that obviously works, I mean, because I've lost over 100 pounds at this point. reversed fatty liver syndrome, healed my thyroid, got off blood pressure medications. My husband's reversed multiple sclerosis. So, we've seen the health effects without question, without question.
Right.
So, and you want to scream it because my whole family is morbidly obese and unhealthy. And I'm the only one who's broken out of the mold. And, they see me when we get together. We get together like 4 times a year, for family holidays. And they see what I'm doing and they see what I'm eating. And it still doesn't resonate. In the beginning, I wanted to, talk about it all the time. And they're like, finally, my sister said, do you not understand? We don't want to hear about this. And part of it is family dynamics because I'm the baby of the family, and I know nothing. I'm always going to be 10 in their eyes, and that annoying.
Me too.
Yeah. Pesky sister, just go away. You're annoying me. So, and that's kind of the attitude I get is like, stop it. You're annoying me. And so, when we get together, it's kind of like this unofficial contest to see who can bring the worst possible dish, for you in terms of health that everybody's going to love because it's high in caloric density, like these outrageously rich dishes that is going to bang your pleasure center, ding, 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 and people are just going to go crazy. But it was interesting. One of the things I always found interesting was that when I brought my food, everybody would question me. What's in that? What is, how did you make it? Where does it come from? And no one else, if somebody else brought a new dish, they wouldn't get the Grand Inquisition,
Right.
And, so finally I just started bringing the recipe. Here's the recipe. Take a picture of it. If you like it, great, make it. But so we've come to a compromise, so like when we do get together, so they know how I eat, and I know obviously how they eat. And so I try not to bring stuff that I have to prepare at their house. So I'll make the food ahead of time and then I'll bring it in the mini Hot Logic. And the mini Hot Logic is a warming tray and it keeps it piping hot. And we have the adapter for the car. We use it when we're traveling because I like a hot meal. I do. I like a hot meal. So I'll prepare ahead of time. And we always bring, it's kind of like a potluck, family potluck. So I'll bring the salad. Everybody eats salad. And then I'll bring my own dressing. And then they have, a variety of dressings you can put on. So that works. And just so I don't feel deprived, because they're going to have, oh my God, the hors d'oeuvres. It just goes on forever, and ever. And it's just this constant grazing from the time we get together till the time we leave, we're eating and play games. We do that too. Just so I don't feel deprived, I will bring something that's a little bit higher caloric density that I normally don't eat, like rice crackers with the Kite Hill cream cheese. Oh my God.
Yeah,
that is
great.
phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yes.
So I'll bring that. And then I feel like I'm cheating, but I'm not because it's all plant-based. But it's not something that I would normally have because it's higher caloric density and it has a little bit higher salt. The cream cheese especially has the salt in there for me because I can't have much salt. So I feel like I'm eating something, a cheat. So I feel like, okay, I got something that I don't normally have. And then I'll bring chocolate peanut butter pie and for dessert. So, and then I'll just bring our own dishes. So we don't have to get into the kitchen and bother them. So as soon as I get inside the house, I will take the mini Hot Logic and plug it in someplace where it's not going to get run over by kids, people, whatever. And then when we go down to have dinner, I'll just unzip it, pull it out, and it's enough easily, not just for my husband and myself, but if anybody else wants it at the table, they're welcome to have it. Usually they don't. They look at it and go, oh, no, yeah, there's more food over here. I'll eat that. But that's okay. And sometimes I'll have an occasional relative who will try it and go, oh my God, that is so good. And I'm like, I know.
Your recipes are amazing. And your tips, like about the mini Hot Logic, this is really great. And in the program, you share all of these recipes, which are right.
Yeah.
You have
absolutely. And I keep adding because I keep cooking, now because of COVID, I'm in lockdown mode.
Right.
And honey, I've come up, I must have added at least another 30 recipes over this last couple of months. I keep coming up with new stuff. I came up, actually, I haven't even written the recipe yet, but I made this and it's here. I just got to write it out. It reminded me so much of those chicken pot pies. Remember those little things in those aluminum containers that we used to play Frisbee when we were done afterwards with the little tin cans?
Yeah.
So, but it reminded me so much of that. And I think I really perfected the gravy. Oh my God, I've got this down. When I tasted that gravy, it was like, and that's the base of it.
Fantastic.
And
Right.
I'm like, okay, I got this. I got this. It was perfect recipe. But
Are
anyway,
you using jackfruit for the chicken?
no, there's no
I've done
chicken.
that.
There's no.
Oh, okay.
It just reminded
Just the
me of
vegetable. Ah, because of
that
the taste.
flavor because it's all vegetable
Yes.
based. But there's no like faux chicken. I forget that stuff. I don't buy that. You know.
But jackfruit is, that's a,
No, I know. I'm just saying,
we've done
like
that. Yeah.
jackfruit or the
So I think the idea of bringing something, if you're
right,
if you're going to a party, bring your own food, absolutely, so you don't have
right,
to go hungry or feel deprived,
right.
because then your host is going to be miserable, and it's just.
I know.
I mean, I
It's just
remember those situations before I really knew, like, oh, can we get you something? Can we make you something? Or okay. But the other thing is, if people are receptive and are interested, then you should
right.
know that there are movies, and you've probably watched some of them yourself, but Forks Over Knives is a great way to start. There's Cowspiracy if they're interested in the environment. What the Health? There's also
Game changers.
Game Changers for
That's
athletes.
gonna hook the men. That
Yeah,
will hook. I
right.
just a
Yeah.
quick brief story with my husband. We went to go see that movie with my husband and my girlfriend and her daughter, older daughter. And so the four of us were in the movie theater. And as soon as we got up to leave, the movie was over. We went into the bathroom because you've been sitting there for 2 hours and, got to go. So the three of us went into the bathroom and I said to the girls, we're washing our hands. And I said, I will text you how long it will take my husband to start talking about that scene, where in the
Oh,
movie where they were measuring.
the boys. Yeah.
I don't want
The young
to.
men.
I don't want
Right.
to spoiler alert. Okay, I don't want to give a spoiler alert here. But there's this one scene, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about from a male's perspective. And my husband was literally standing in the door of the ladies' room, okay, waiting for us to come out. And we didn't even clear the frame of the doorway. And my husband ordered, I didn't think he was going to talk about this in front of the other two ladies, but he did. He did. He started
It
talking
was
about it.
it was very powerful. It was a
It
powerful
was.
scene. I
That
thought it
will
was.
hook. You want to hook your husband or your boyfriend or whatever, your partner, watch that one. That will get the men every
Yeah.
time. So
Game Changers is wonderful, and so
yeah,
is Cowspiracy. And there are some also, if people are, willing to watch, there are some amazing films about the horrors of the industry, of the meat industry,
I
things like.
can't watch them. I can't.
Right,
I
but
just
people
can't.
do, and it affects them. So there's
It
Earthlings and
does.
Dominion. There's another movie called A Prayer for Compassion. So if you are with,
Yes.
there are a lot of people who are definitely feel faith based, and that movie, A Prayer for Compassion, which one of my mentors, Victoria Moran, is a wonderful, wonderful person.
She's
She,
amazing.
yeah, so she produced this, and it's really terrific. So it gives you sort of the religious basis for veganism. And I think if you have any interest in sort of those kinds of biblical texts and things like that, I think it would be
Yep.
very interesting for people to watch. So A Prayer for Compassion also.
Go
You do
ahead.
something
I'm
else?
sorry.
Well, no, I just wanted to say that it's one thing not to understand what you're
Yeah.
doing, but it's another thing to actually put pressure on you to eat differently.
Yeah.
And you have to find a way to put an end to that. And especially if you're pregnant or going to be pregnant and people have these concerns and they say, well, you're going to hurt your baby, then you have to know what to say. So
Right.
one thing you can show them is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics position statement on vegetarian and vegan diets, because it is and you can find that online, okay? Because they absolutely recommend that there are some benefits, and it's a well-planned vegan diet is absolutely safe for all stages in life. But also you could say, and you should be able to say, that your clinician, your physician, or your midwife, or whoever you're going to see, approves of the way you're eating. And we're going to give you enough information and hope so that you will have a clinician that does approve and will make sure that what you're doing is absolutely safe. But it's a very tough thing to deal with in-laws and parents who are actually putting pressure on you to eat meat because they think
Right.
your baby needs it. And we'll help you with that.
Yep. Absolutely. Because that's what we're helping you to transition, but we wanted your body to be cleaned out and we talk a lot about the toxins that you have in your body that you need to get out. And this is one of the things that I have since learned, by connecting with Dr. Shapiro, is that when you get pregnant, that at that time of conception, that's the toxic load that the baby's going to be dealing with for the rest of the 9 months. So you
For
want to get
Mercury.
cleaned out. Yeah. I mean, you want to get cleaned out before you get pregnant. So this is what our whole program is about, is we want to educate you to get your body ready. They don't call it labor for nothing. Okay. And it's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done in your entire life, but also the most rewarding, I think. You know, I've raised 2 children, and so far, you know, somewhat successfully, I think, because they're launched and they're off doing their own things. So yeah, a good
That's
thing.
great.
I think we have time for one more question.
Oh, okay. What should we talk about? Which one?
And this one is a big one, because I think our life today has become so driven. Well, and plus with we're in COVID, we're in a pandemic. I mean, you know, wow. What does stress, or how does stress affect the development of a fetus?
So this was something that I absolutely did not know about when I went to medical school. I graduated from University of California, San Francisco Medical School in 1989. And it turns out that the whole idea of epigenetics and our understanding of epigenetics, which is the gene expression and how that's affected by your diet and lifestyle, that was not well understood until the late 90s or the 90s. So I didn't know about it. So I remember when patients would come to me and they were pregnant and they were tearful and they were stressed and they would say, is this affecting my baby? And I actually didn't know. And I would have said probably no. I would have said it's more important that you are able to bond with your baby afterwards, that that's what the baby's going to be responding to, is the love and affection that you can give them afterwards. So being withdrawn as a parent is not going to be helpful. But it turns out that actually your baby is experiencing the stress that you're experiencing, and even the stress that your mother experienced before. And there's a great example of that, and that's with Project Ice Storm. So you can look this up online. But in 1998 in Quebec, there was a very serious winter storm. It was minus 20 degrees, I believe, centigrade for 40 days, and people lost power for a very long time. And there was extreme cold and extreme stress, and people were stuck on public transportation. And it was so there were researchers that decided to follow the offspring of women who were pregnant during this time to see what effects it would have. And what they found out was that when people experienced more stress, whether it was actual stress or perceived stress, the children had more autoimmune disorders, more metabolic disorders, and more autism. And I mean, this is incredible, right? So when they looked more carefully, and I don't know if it's tricky to look at these heat maps. It is tricky for people, but what you see when genes get turned on or off is this huge color change between green and red. So when you look at these heat maps, they're looking at gene expression. And so when you look at people who have minimal stress versus people who have a lot of stress, and you look at people who have actual stress and perceived stress and more or less, hundreds of genes, it's like a whole different person. If you take someone who has very, less stress versus someone who has more stress. And what they found, particularly when people had more actual stress on their bodies, you're talking about like cold stress or being without power, things like that for long times, there were hundreds of genes that changed expressions. And these were genes that coded for things like immunoglobulins, which would affect their child's ability to fight infections, and their immune system in general, and also genes that code for glucocorticoids. So those are the genes that would help you to deal with stress. So you can imagine, when I think about, for example, my grandmother left Russia during the pogroms, and you could think about how her genes might have been affected by the stress of having to leave her country and being having these pogroms going on, these violent, like these riots that would go on like we have in this country sometimes, and how that could affect her genes, her own genes, but also the genes of her ovaries, that she would then become pregnant, and that would be carried to my mom. Now, my mom was pregnant with some of her children during the war, when she was moving around, and she was putting the babies to bed in a drawer. I mean, there was just constant moving, and she wasn't with her husband. So again, tremendous stress. And I look at how my siblings, like one of my siblings, has dealt. The way that she deals with stress might be different than the way I deal with stress, just because mom's genes were a little bit different. So things can change. And what we want to do in the pregnancy advantage is sort of optimize as much as possible your gene expression, so that your children and your grandchildren, future generations, can be as healthy and as smart and as mentally capable as possible. and as resilient
Epigenetics.
through epigenetics. So that
Yeah.
means removing toxins that can cause these kinds of problems, saturated fat that cause these problems, and also stress as much as possible. There's some things that we can't control, but how you deal with stress, some of it is under your control. And we're going to teach you ways to handle stress so that you can optimize you. And Dr. Ornish did his study to show that he could change gene expression in men who had early stage prostate cancer. He always gave them, in addition to a plant-based diet, but also exercise, stress reduction, and a support group. So we'll be your support group. We'll recommend exercise and stress reduction and a very healthy diet.
Yes, we will. All right. Well, we have a gift for you. So make sure you go to pregnantready.net, and we have the top 3 things that we think you should be doing to get your body pregnant ready. Because this is not the best time to be getting pregnant because it's hard to get doctor appointments and everything else. But this is an awesome time to get your body pregnant ready. So if you're thinking of having children in the future, this is the game plan. This is the game plan.
Right.
And if you're dealing with any health issues, you need to fix those health issues before you get pregnant. So,
right. And if you've been eating a meat-based diet, especially a lot of fish, you can have toxins in your body that are persistent for years. Dr. Greger recommends 5 years to detox from fish before pregnancy.
Right.
And I know that I had mercury poisoning a couple of times, and mercury, the half-life is 100 days. I mean, definitely, to get from a level of 14 to 7 is going to get you down, is going to take 100 days, for example. And you really want it to be as low as possible. It is a neurotoxin. So take your time. This is the time to get ready for a pregnancy. So even if you think, oh, it's going to be a couple of years, we could still help.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is what you want to do because you want to make sure that your baby, because I've seen it in the classroom. Oh my God. After 35 years of teaching, I finally stepped out of my brick and mortar classroom and I saw it on any given class. Out of my class size was about 15 kids. On any given day or time or year, at least 3 or 4 kids, teenagers, high school, were dealing with major chronic issues all the time. All the time. They shouldn't be. You should be the prime and the peak of your health. Apart from a sniffle or a cold or something, okay, fine. But chronic, all the time, oh my gosh, all the time. And so much ADHD, ADD, cognitive development issues. I mean, I saw it all in the classroom. And it's just so sad.
It's so sad. If you can't learn, then you can't succeed. Right?
Right.
So we're going to be facing monumental environmental problems in the future, and we need the healthiest population possible to deal with these problems going forward. So we can't afford, not to mention that in the next 20 years or 30 years, we are not going to be able to eat the way I was eating when I was growing up on Spam and bologna and blah, 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 and pigs in blankets. You're just not going to be able to eat that way. So this is the time to learn how to create the most delicious food for your family so that you can raise healthy vegan children.
Exactly. Next week, we're going to be on Friday instead of Thursday, but we have Dr. Michael Clapper. So I'm so excited to have him on this and to be able to ask him questions because, wow, he has been doing this, I don't know, like forever, like when the Mayflower came over. I mean, he's just been part of this, like one of the, I call him plant-based royalty, one of the founding fathers kind of thing of this whole movement. So
he's so wonderful. And he said that he would be available through his plant-based telemedicine to help our clients. They have diabetes and hypertension to get off their meds. So if you don't yet have a doctor who can help you, we have telemedicine doctors who can help you, and Dr. Clapper is one. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
It is. I'm so excited. Thank you for tuning in today. If you have questions, please send them, message either Debra or myself on the Pregnancy Advantage Facebook page, or you can find us on Facebook, either one of us. So, and you could also connect through the website, pregnancyadvantage.net. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.